Welcome to the Forge. I haven't done any videos in a long time. I figure it's probably time to do a little tutorial on welding edge bands on the blades. This one, a little hard to see because I've already done some of the prep work, but this bar here is actually a wolfstooth edge bar made up of wrought iron and 1095. Then this blade blank here is a counter twist billet of 1084, 15 and 20. I've already done prep work. I've forged this flat, taken the bar and ground the wrought iron side of it flat. This particular piece of wrought iron had an inclusion band that caused me trouble in earlier pieces, so I had to actually take it down through the inclusion band to make sure that that went away. And I pretty much made it the surface up, ground it down to flat, and then took it down to 45 microns because I'm a big believer, when possible, in preparing your surfaces before you forge weld. It saves a whole lot of trouble. And just to make sure that I didn't get any oxides in between them, since I didn't do the thing with, you know, sealing out the air by electric welding a sealing band around it, I gave it a quick little hit with boric acid soaked with soaked into alcohol, dissolved in alcohol. It's a jeweler's preflux that we use when we're soldering silver or gold to make sure that you don't get what's called fire scale, which is when the non-noble elements in the metal oxidize while you're working in high temperatures. It also works really good as kind of a preflux for the forge welding process. If you're not going to do a fluxless weld, it never hurts to have just a little bit of extra insurance. So, took denatured alcohol, mixed it up in the boric acid. By the way, your basic commercial generic roach powder is boric acid. Surprise, surprise. Obviously not the pharmaceutical grade boric acid that you use for things like, you know, controlling foot fungus, things like that. But it's good enough for this. So I'm taking and applying it to where the forge weld is going to be. Light that up, and you can see I got a little bit of a green fire going. Kind of cool effect. Now, boric acid as a flux melts at extremely low temperatures, and it's also very active at low temperatures. It doesn't actually stay on the piece at forge welding temperatures, but it's great and extremely effective at cleaning up oxides before you get to forge welding temperatures. So I'm going to, over the bowl that's on my anvil, liberally dust the joint with the boric acid roach powder. As this heats up, it's going to liquefy and actually wick into the joint by capillary action and help to coat the surfaces before they get to the temperature at which the borax becomes active. So into the forge it goes. And that's going to sit there. By the way, if you've never seen these tongs before, Matthew Parkinson makes them. They're worth the money. Now I'm going to take my handy dandy bowl and fill it up with flux from my flux bucket, which is a mixture of borax, from 20 multi borax, and boric acid. as my piece starts to heat up, I lay that on there, put it back in so that the flux has time to wick down into the joint, make sure that everything is still happy. Now there's a big movement towards fluxless welding, especially with billets. It's a great idea, works really well if you do it right. If you're working with antique wrought iron, sometimes it's not the worst idea, sometimes it's not the best idea. I like going with things that I've done for a long time because I know they work. See, now that's starting to get liquid and flow around in there. Now, one thing about using flux in a propane forge, it will eat the refractory floor. I made these forges and I use a hard castable refractory for the floors, which actually works really well. Doesn't get eaten very much, and when it does get eaten, I put a little bit more in and refire it. Works great. Letting that come up to a nice forge welding temperature. Probably don't really need to see a big bright orange spot. So I'll just give you the narrative of what I'm seeing. Now looking at here, my piece is just starting to come up to temperature. One of the nice things about using the borax flux is you start to see it boil and bubble when it's getting up to about welding temperature for a simple steel like what I'm using. I want to see both sides of the weld at the same temperature, and I want to see the boiling going on both sides. And since I did a little bit of a mid-tack weld at the base of the blade to ensure that everything stays aligned, that's where I'm going to start my weld. Bring it out. Just check it on the anvil once to make sure that everything stays aligned, and I give it a very gentle tap. And I put it back in the fire. And again, a very gentle tap, where I did my previous one. 1, 2, put it back in the fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And back in the fire. One of the common misconceptions about forge welding is that you have to smack the tar out of it to make it work. Not the case. It's actually a thing that happens between the atoms of the steel. You're just helping it. You see that sticking together? Forging it on the side, if there's any problem with the weld, it's going to cause a split. You'll start to see a change in the spot and how fast it cools. Looks like we're not getting that. Now I'm going to back the forge down from welding heat. Sure it's working. Hope that was educational. Sorry about the fat back, but well, that's the way I'm built.